Hello, I'm the Hardcore Gamer, and today we're going to be talking about skateboarding games, namely my skateboarding games collection, which is quite large, so I'm going to show you what I've got. This video is inspired by my friend Martin's Games, who did a cool video on his channel where he basically went over his Tony Hawk games, and it kind of inspired me to do my own. So I do have Tony Hawk games, I do have skateboarding games of other companies, other origins, so I just kind of want to talk about those. Now, this isn't by any means an exhaustive list. I don't have every single skateboarding game that's ever been released. I have a lot of them. There are a few I don't have, and there are a few I kind of am seeking out at the moment. I guess we'll get started. I am going to preface this first. I'm only including games where skateboarding is the main focus. So games like 2 Extreme, 3 Extreme, in my eyes, I don't count, because skateboarding is an aspect of it. Like, skateboarding is the character essentially you play as. It's not a skateboarding game, it's also a racing game, and the skateboarding isn't great. I'm also not counting things like, I know companies like Phoenix Games have done really like terrible low budget skateboarding games. I don't count them at all because they are crap. I'm only kind of counting mainstream, what I class as like AAA releases. Okay, as I go through, I'm going to talk about games that I don't have that I want to get, and I'm also going to talk about some games that I only have digitally. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the game off, and then I'm going to show a little bit of footage of the game as I'm talking about it, so you can kind of get the feel for what it is. Some of them you're going to know, some of them you might not have ever heard of, so I guess let's get started. First things first, we're going to go through the Tony Hawk games, because he's the most famous skateboarding game purveyor, so yeah, it seems a good place to start. So I'm going to start with these, which is a little bit different. This is a PlayStation Magazine demo disc. As you can see, it contains Tony Hawk Skateboarding. This is the very first time I ever played Tony Hawk. On this particular demo disc, this exact demo disc, I kept it all these years. The demo is quite a lot different from the final game. There's things like different fonts in it, some different tricks. It's kind of a slightly different presentation as well, like the menus and stuff is slightly different. But yeah, it was kind of like a beta type thing. But it's just a cool thing to have. So this, yeah, is a nice piece of history that I count as part of my Tony Hawk collection. On that note, this is the demo for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Yeah, again, this is the original that I bought with the PlayStation Magazine when it came out. So this is the Marseille level. And yeah, as I said, similar to the other demo disc, slightly different version. The menus are slightly different fonts and things in place. Tricks have slightly different names, but ultimately it's pretty much the release version. But yeah, it's a fun demo of a fun game. Okay, so let's go into proper games now. Tony Hawk Skateboarding, also known as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater outside of the UK, because people apparently would think it was about ice skating, even though he's got a skateboard. Yep, the original, some would say the best. This is kind of what started it all really for skateboarding games. Got your selection of characters, got some great levels in there. Play as Tony Hawk, play as my favourite Chad Muska of the time, my favourite now, Andrew Reynolds, you know, looking back at skateboarding and things. Yeah, it's just a fun game that kind of started it all, really. Here we go, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. This is a lot of people's first exposure to skateboarding games. And yeah, what can I say? It's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. It took everything the first game did and just kind of kicked it up a notch. Made levels better and bigger, introduced new moves like the manual, no slide, tail slide, and just generally improved everything. Yeah, it's a fantastic game. This is actually still my original one. The Tony Hawk Skateboarding is my original as well. Yeah, just an amazing game. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. Again, this is my original. I got this before I got my PS2. It's slightly different to the PS2 version. The levels aren't quite as big or expansive. It is running on the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 engine, but they kind of have done their best to kind of emulate what would be the mainline Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. Yeah, it's a fun game. The levels are slightly different, so it gives it sort of its own value, I guess. But yeah, a fun game. Getting into the PS2 era, here we have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. Now, this isn't my original from back in the day because I actually got rid of my PS2, foolishly, but I have managed to rebuy most of the games I had for it. So this is a new version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. Yep, the first next-gen version, the first PS2 version, updated the graphics, updated the move sets, these extra things you can do now, like the revert, which kind of revolutionised gameplay in the Tony Hawk series. It's got some great levels. It's just a fantastic, fantastic game. Moving on. Tony Hawk 4, again, another super influential Tony Hawk game. This one introduced things like the spine transfer into the mix. And yeah, it's just a great game. This one also got rid of the kind of 2-minute time limit structure, and it was kind of open world. And you could go around and kind of pick which levels and missions and stuff you wanted to do, which was a cool like little addition to the series. Yeah, fun game. Many people's favourite, Tony Hawk's Underground. I actually really enjoyed this game. It's kind of the first game with a story mode, so you kind of start out as a kind of no-name skater from your hometown, and all you want to do is be a super big pro. So you embark on a mission to get sponsored and all that good stuff. I'm not going to ruin it for you. You've probably played it anyway. Tony Hawk's Underground, yeah, introduced loads of new tricks, updated the creator skater, and obviously the story mode being the big selling point of it. Yeah, a fun game. Okay, next, Tony Hawk's Underground 2. Yep, sequel to Tony Hawk's Underground. Same kind of idea. It was a story-based thing. You went around the world on different missions, but this one was very kind of Jackass inspired. Bam Margera is the main character in this one, and it's kind of you go around on the World to Destruction tour, and you blow things up and change things and kind of ruin cities and people's lives and things like that. It's fun. It wasn't quite as well received as the original Tony Hawk's Underground, but still a fun game, still a fun addition to the series. I also have the PSP version, which is slightly different. There's some extra levels and things in it. Some stages wouldn't appear until later games, actually. So things like Santa Cruz appears in this game, which doesn't appear again until Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, which is a fun level and somewhere I've actually been, and I've spoken about that in previous videos. But yeah, this is a fun addition, fun to play a actual full Tony Hawk game on the move as well, because normally they were like the Game Boy Advance versions, which were kind of isometric kind of affairs. So this was like a full proper Tony Hawk game. Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. This, I feel, is a really underrated game. I really enjoyed it. It is kind of back to the story mode element of Tony Hawk's Underground, but you play as a guy who's just moved to LA to seek his fortune, and you meet a whole bunch of skateboarders and reprobates and pro skaters and have to try and rebuild this old sort of famous skate park. I find it really fun. I think it's the best the Tony Hawk controls have ever been. The level choice is great. I mean, it's all around LA, but you've got things like skate parks and kind of little extra parts of the city and things you can access, and it's just fun. I would say it's one of my favourites, actually, after Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 and Underground. It's definitely an underrated gem, and I think you should give it a go. Tony Hawk's Project 8. They changed the engine and the graphics and things for this game. It definitely still feels like Tony Hawk, but it's not quite right. There's something very off about it. The creator skater isn't great. But this is the first one with a fully, truly open world. Now, Tony Hawk's American Wasteland said it had an open world, but you had to go through these like loading tunnels that had essentially like load in the next area, so it kind of wasn't a true open world game. But this one is. You can go seamlessly from one end of the map to the other with no loading, and yeah, it's fun. It's not amazing. The Tony Hawk series was definitely on a downhill kind of spiral at this point. But I think it's definitely still worth your time if you kind of like the actual old school Neversoft Tony Hawk games. And here we go. This is the very last Tony Hawk's game made by Neversoft, the original developers, before they moved on to Guitar Hero. Tony Hawk's Proving Ground. Again, it's kind of a story mode game where you are kind of trying just to prove yourself and grow through the ranks of pro skaters. This one again is kind of an open world thing, but it's only set in 3 cities. Like the Project 8 is kind of a fictional city, whereas this is based in Philadelphia and Chicago and Baltimore. So it's kind of interesting locations, not really places that I would, other than Philly, would like put a skateboarding game. But yeah, it's not too bad. If you liked Project 8 and kind of the new use of the engine and things in that, then I think you'll enjoy this one. But yeah, this definitely was kind of the beginning of the end of the Tony Hawk's series. But yeah, it's worth a go. Okay, this game is a digital-only release. This is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD. It kind of combines levels from Tony Hawk 1 and Tony Hawk 2, and is kind of a precursor to the Tony Hawk remaster that's coming out in kind of spiritually. This is done by Robomodo, and it doesn't look like they've used the Tony Hawk engine. It seems like they've just kind of made their own. It feels floaty and weird and just not quite right. The level choice is okay, it's not great. But yeah, kind of this was really kind of disappointing and not what people were really expecting from a Tony Hawk game. It's fun for a bit. I got really fed up with just how different it was, and in respect to like the controls don't feel right, the physics don't feel right. It just feels like a struggle to play it. But yeah, I know you can't get it anymore. But yeah, it is what it is. Okay, lastly, again, this is a digital game. It is available physically, but I only have the digital version because it was really cheap. This is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. This game is garbage. It's just absolute trash. At some point, I do want to do a full review of it, just because it's like its nuances, it's just the way the game operates, not even the controls of the game, just kind of the menu system and just things like that. Just they have to be seen to be believed. They're so bad. This is like it's just a really bad game. It's the death knell for the series before the new one come out, or is coming out this year. I don't know what else I can say without really spoiling much about it, because I want to talk about it in a review. It's just really bad. It's just a really bad game, and I do not recommend it. I just remembered I also have this. This is Tony Hawk's Underground on the Game Boy Advance. Now, I'm probably not going to show any footage of this, but it's essentially Tony Hawk Underground, but it's kind of an isometric view. It's an interesting one. It's weird to control. I never kind of got used to how it controls, so I'm so used to the normal Tony Hawk games. But yeah, it's definitely one of the collection, so just thought that was worth a mention. So as for Tony Hawk games I don't own, there is Tony Hawk Ride and Tony Hawk Shred, which are ones that use the kind of big plastic skateboard accessory. I don't have them. I want them, but I'm not willing to pay how much they are currently going for. It's ridiculous. If anybody has them and wants to lend them to me, not even give them to me, just like lend them to me, like send me them so I can review them, I would absolutely love that. I have Xbox 360 and PS3, so I can play them on that, and Wii, I guess, as well. I just want to experience them and talk about them. I've heard they're not great, but I'm willing to give them a shot. I also don't have Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam. It's kind of a spin-off title, it's not really a mainline title, but I would be really interested in playing it. If you can hear that, there's people screaming out in my close, which is very annoying. But yeah, Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam. I'd like to play it, again, to kind of review. But yeah, that's just the ones I don't own. Yeah, okay, so let's move on to non-Tony Hawk games, and some of these you may not have heard of. So let's get to it. First things first, Skate or Die. This was, as far as I can recall, the second actual skateboarding game. The first was 720, which was an Atari game and also on the arcade. This is Skate or Die for the NES. It's an interesting game, actually. It's got kind of a downhill skating mode, like a versus mode. There's a kind of pool joust mode. You've got a half pipe type mode in there. Yeah, for the time, it's actually a really fun game. It kind of represents skateboarding quite well from that era. and it's made by Palcom, who are now owned by EA, which is interesting, which is why there's actually Skate or Die clothing in later skate games, which is kind of cool. I know they tried to remake this, and it got cancelled for whatever reason. But yeah, I'd love to see a new version of this actually. Yeah, it's a fun game. Yeah, it's quite limited, but it's a NES game. What can you really expect? But yeah, fun. Next up, Street Skater. Now this is obviously the Value Classics weird version. Just because really. I originally played this at a friend's house like years and years ago, like when it was first released. This is from 1998. This predates the Tony Hawk series. This version is was released in 1999, I believe, as part of this Value series. It's an arcade style game, so it's kind of downhill races with points and things. All the tricks are kind of made up and unrealistic. Ultimately, it's not great. It's not that good a game. The best thing about this game is it's got an affiliation with Epitaph Records. The soundtrack to this game is incredible. It's all kind of like 90s punk, but if you're into your 90s punk, it's incredible. My first time I ever heard my favourite band in the world, which is a band called H2O, which you've seen me wear t-shirts and things in videos before. I very first heard them in this game. Now this disc as well is an old style PlayStation disc, because you can put this in a CD player and it plays the soundtrack to the game. So from track 2 onwards, it plays all the game soundtrack. Now this was a mainstay in my portable CD player when I was younger, like when I was skating. It'd always be with me, I'd always be listening to it. It's just a really good soundtrack. Game itself, not great, but yeah, the soundtrack, phenomenal. I guess it's worth owning as a part of history. Also an interesting note, in the US this was called Street Skater, but it was SK number 8 ER. So I'm not sure why they changed it. Maybe thought we wouldn't know what numbers were over here. But yeah, there you go. This was the first skating game on a PlayStation, if you don't count the Extreme games, which I don't. So this is the first solid PlayStation game. Kind of a takeoff of Top Skater, the arcade game, but yeah, it's alright. Next up, Thrasher Skate and Destroy. Now this is one of my favourite skateboarding games of all time. Tony Hawk was your kind of arcade points-based system. This was more simulatory. It's more slower paced. The tricks are more difficult to pull off. You have things like a landing button so you can land them properly. It's endorsed by Thrasher magazine. It's a skateboarding magazine, not a clothing brand, thanks. But yeah, it's just a really, really good game. Now this is my original copy from back in the day. I bought this when it was released because I saw it was a skateboarding game and I was a skater and wanted to play it. There are no pro skaters in this. There are some real brands in it because you kind of get sponsored as you go through. It's got an interesting mechanic where you can free skate for as long as you want, and you can start your timed run. When you get to the end of the time of your timed run, like it doesn't just automatically end, you get a bonus time, which in some levels will be a policeman coming and finding you and chasing after you, or a guard dog finding you, or a night watchman, or whatever. Or in one level there's a crackhead who wants to mug you, and they'll chase you, and you've got an exit point you can get to, be extra points and things for doing tricks in front of them, which is really interesting, which feels a lot more like real skating. You know, if you've ever been a real skateboarder and you've ever got kicked out of anywhere, then it definitely represents that very well. Yeah, it's a really good game, definitely worth checking out. I really wish they'd do kind of a follow-up, but I don't know if they will now. Obviously it's a bit late. This was released in 1999, before the first Tony Hawk game actually. But yeah, really good game, really recommend it. Here we go, Street Skater 2. This is a sequel to the aforementioned Street Skater. It's a little bit better actually. It's got more of a Tony Hawk inspired control scheme, rather than the weird control scheme the previous one had. It's easier to score tricks, easier to score points. It's still kind of a downhill race type thing, but the time limits are a bit more lenient. Levels are a bit more expressive and different. You can make your own skate parks in this one. yeah, it's an improvement. Still not great. Definitely improvement over the previous Street Skater game. Yeah, it's a good one for me to have in the collection. And yeah, my case has got a massive crack in the middle of it. Oh well. Okay, this is Grind Session. This is made by Sony. This is an official first-party release. It's actually quite a fun game. It's kind of got another Tony Hawk inspired control scheme, but it kind of tries to do its own thing with it. It's got some real life locations in it. It's got some real life pro skaters in it, like people like Day One Song are in this game. Willie Santos, here he goes on the cover. Used to ride for the same company Tony Hawk owns, Birdhouse Skateboards. A little trivia fact for you. This is also endorsed by Vans and the Vans Triple Crown, so you get to skate the old Vans Triple Crown course and things in it. But yeah, it's a fun, interesting game. It's very sort of trying to kind of ride the coattails of Tony Hawk, but also trying to do its own thing at the same time. There's things like the skater vision, where you can kind of stop and look around and see where like your trick lines and things are. It's all about scoring tricks in lines and things like that, and you can see all those with this vision. I'd say it's definitely one to check out, actually. It's very difficult. It's more difficult than Tony Hawk. It's quite tricky to score points and things in and hit those targets, and it's very kind of challenge based, like a Tony Hawk game, like collect the skate letters or whatever, or knock over the boxes or things like that. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth looking at. There you go, Grind Session. Here we go. MTV Sports Skateboarding featuring Andy McDonald. This is basically an unabashed, unashamed Tony Hawk ripoff starring Andy McDonald. It's kind of okay in its own right. Like, it feels very interesting. Like, the graphics are quite good. It's got quite a lot of levels and things in it as well. There's other things, I can't remember what they're called, like stunt courses, where you basically have to do particular tricks on particular obstacles in a row to score points, which are quite fun. It's a very Andy Mac thing. So he invented Skate Across. If you've not seen Skate Across, look it up on YouTube. It's mental. But yes, it is just kind of a big old rip-off of Tony Hawk. Sort of came out in 2000s, that kind of era where Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 had come out and people were kind of wanting to cash in. But yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's definitely worth a go. Yeah, there you go. MTV Skateboarding. It's also got a really good soundtrack, being MTV, and it's got music videos and stuff in it as well that you can unlock. Yeah, there you go. Moving on to PS2, we have X Games Skateboarding. This is an interesting one. I remember playing this way back when it came out and really liking it. But then when I played it more recently, it ain't great. The controls are quite stiff. It's quite hard to pull off tricks and combos and things. The scores and things and the challenges in the story are quite unforgiving. But it's interesting. The graphics are actually really good in this game. Things like your clothes will blow in the wind as you're moving around. The tricks look all quite good. Got a really good selection of pro skaters in it, actually. The levels are a bit lame. Like the San Francisco level that doesn't include Pier 39 or Embarcadero, or any of those like famous skate spots like Pier 7 or Third and Army or any of that stuff. Just kind of streets. So that's a bit lame. But yeah, the selection of pro skaters is really good. There's people like Bob Burnquist, Chris Sem's in this, Rick McCrank's in this. Who else? I think Colin McKay, not Danny Way. Yeah, Colin McKay, Kerry Getz, Bam Margera's friend, Chad Fernandez. Yeah, it's definitely worth a shot. It's okay. If you can get it really cheap, I'd say give it a go. But yeah, it's not the best skateboarding game ever, but again, it's fun to have for the collection. Skate. This is the game that changed it all, especially for me. The Tony Hawk games were kind of the dominating force in the skateboarding game series. They were kind of on a bit of a downward spiral, especially with things like Proving Ground and Project 8. EA came along and invented Skate. And and this was supposed to replicate real skateboarding. So all the tricks were mapped to one of the thumbsticks, particularly the right thumbstick. So you'd have to kind of flick them how you would flick your board to actually skate. So it's more of a kind of simulator. And yeah, it's really, really addictive and really fun to play. And it just kind of changed skateboarding games, really. Things like this, like the realism of this, Tony Hawk just could not compete with. It is a fantastic game in its own right. It's not perfect. There are little things in it that they did improve later on with other games in the series. But yeah, definitely a great first place to start. I used to love playing this game online actually, with my skater friends. Me and my friend Aaron would play this online quite a lot and just kind of session things like we were out in the streets or out at a skate park. We just do it in this. Yeah, great game, worth time. Check it out. Okay, Skate 2. Yeah, it kind of took everything the first game did, kept most of it, improved bits, improved the physics. You can actually get off your board in this one as well, so you can run around on foot and complete different challenges and things. You can move obstacles around now, so you can sort of create your own spots by adding rails and like jumps and things in. Just a really, really fun game. Not too different from the first game, but they kind of added new elements and changed things up just enough to make it a worthy sequel. I would say out of all the skate games, this is the best one because it seemed to make the most changes and kind of improve the system. Yeah, definitely a fun game. Definitely worth playing. Definitely worth your time. Next up, Skate 3. Now this is a fantastic game. I did say Skate 2 was the best because this kind of doesn't really do anything different to Skate 2. Graphics are slightly better. The interface is slightly better. But other than that, it's essentially the same game. They haven't really added anything brand new to it that wasn't in Skate 2. But this is kind of, I guess, if you were going to buy any skate game and you didn't want to collect them, then this is the one to get. The servers are still active, so you can still play this online. You can still download creative parks and things like that. I think it was PewDiePie made it really popular again by playing it online on YouTube. So actually, they put it back into production. They put it as a digital download. It's backwards compatible on the Xbox One as well, as is the first one. Yeah, it is a fantastic game. I'm not going to lie. I don't think it's quite as good as the second one, but it's still great and definitely worth playing. Okay, next up. This is Shaun White's Skateboarding, which is obviously hosted by skateboarder Shaun White, who's also a professional snowboarder, and you don't really hear much about him anymore, which is bizarre. This game is interesting. You're kind of a freedom fighter taking over the city from this big evil corporation that wants to oppress people and hold them down. You know, nothing like real life. You do this by skateboarding and doing radical tricks. The whole world in this is kind of black and white. And then when you do your skateboarding tricks and your crazy flippiness and that, it turns the whole world to colour. Which is kind of interesting, and like people around sort of get stoked on you, and you can kind of change the landscape as well. Like ramps appear out of nowhere and things grow out of the ground, and you kind of have to, like, your freedom fighter character has to go around and like do these tricks to free the city, to save Shaun, who's been kidnapped by this evil government corporation thing. It's an interesting concept, actually. The game actually plays really well. Kind of Tony Hawk cloney in places, kind of its own thing in places. The control scheme is definitely kind of a Tony Hawk kind of clone situation. But yeah, it's ultimately it's actually pretty decent and bit of an obscure one, kind of. But I think definitely kind of worth a shot. Okay, Skater XL. This is brand new. It's literally been out a couple of weeks. It has been in kind of early access and it's been on Steam for a while. But this is the console version, and this is version 1.0. So this is like the first full version of it, I guess. They're still doing additions to it, still making changes and things to it. But it's great. It's just a fun game. It took what Skate did with the kind of revolutionising the skating controls and things like that, and just flicks it up to another level. Each stick is now a foot. So rather than having one stick that emulate how the board flips, this is each stick is a foot. You steer using the triggers, and it just feels really close to real skateboarding. You get that kind of thrill playing this as you do from real skateboarding, and it just looks really, really cool. Content-wise, not a lot in it. It's kind of, there are challenges, but they're basically kind of almost tutorials on how to do different moves and things. Other than that, you just go to different levels and you just skate. So there's nothing really to do other than just kind of skate. You find a place to skate, you want to practice tricks, you want to get a good trick down. It's got a really good inbuilt video editor, so you can kind of edit your clips as if you were doing a skate video. There are some fantastic videos on YouTube about it. People have made full skate videos like in it. Yeah, it's really fun, but there's not an awful lot to it. I hope the future updates add bits and pieces to it, which would be really, really good. Okay, this is another digital only one. This is Session. Now, I have played this on the channel before. It kind of takes a similar approach to Skater XL, but this is super realistic simulatory. Again, each stick is mapped to a foot, but it feels more close to skateboarding. If you are a skateboarder and you want to feel what skating is like without actually being on a board, this is the game to get. Now, this is in early access. It's game preview on Xbox, so essentially they are going to keep adding to it. This isn't a complete version. Apparently they're doing a complete overhaul of the physics, so once that update comes out, it's going to feel like a kind of like a different game to play. But it's just really good. It's just really like, it just replicates the experience of skating really, really well. Again, there's not really any challenges in this. They do daily challenges, which is kind of like do X amount of this trick or hit this many types of trick on this particular location and things like that, which it grants you money for. But at the moment, there's no function for the money in the game. Eventually, there's going to be a skate shop where you can buy add-ons and things. But at the moment, there isn't any of that in place yet. So it's literally just you just kind of earn the money and it doesn't really do anything. But there's also historical challenges where certain locations, because it's all based on real-world locations in and around New York. So there are historical challenges which relate to things that famous pro skaters have done in videos or things like that at those particular locations, and you can replicate them, and yeah, you can kind of fill the list. So there are kind of more things to do than in Session, in Skater XL, but I'm hoping there will be more added to it as the game comes along. Again, this is a like extreme beta. I think it's like 003 version, so it's not even like the finished thing yet, and they're going to keep adding to it and adding to it. But yeah, it's fun. It's definitely worth a go. It's super cheap because it's early access. I think it's cost me like 16 quid. Yeah, so that's that. Now, there are a couple of games that I don't own yet that I have coming. I've got stuff I've bought on eBay. So I currently have Evolution Skateboarding. Hey, yeah, me here in the edit suite. Look what came. I haven't actually had time to play it yet, so I don't really know that much about it, but I'm going to throw some footage in now.
Frontside shunning. Bob shunning. Not quite you there. Do like pain, don't you? Body burial.
Oh man, you gotta do better than that. Don't break the camera.
Frontside shunning. That's 3 tricks in a row. Wow. 50-50 grind. Nice riding.
And we now go back to your regularly scheduled video. Now, other than the Tony Hawk games and that game, the only game I don't own, as far as I can recall, if anyone obviously can mention any other games to me, then please mention in the comments or contact me on Twitter, is Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure, which is kind of built on the Tony Hawk 4 engine, but it's all Disney characters, and each level is based on a different Disney film, and it's 4 levels. Super simplified controls, like you can't do the full things you can do in Tony Hawk, and kind of pared them down quite a bit, 'cause it's for kids, essentially. Yeah, it's supposed to be quite fun though. Again, another one I'll probably have to pick up for the collection. But yeah, that's it. These are my skateboarding games. This is my skateboarding game collection. Let me know in the comments what you think, if there's anything I'm missing. If you want to lend me Ride and Shred, that would be great, because I really want to review those. So there you go. That's my game collection. I've been a Hardcore Gamer. This has been my game collection. Join me next time for a much better video. But for now, this is Skate 3, just because I picked it up. Bye.